Look at that. Very, very literate. Excuse me. Literacy is alive and well here on the internet, and thus by extension on Facebook. Who's holding up this book? A real book, not a Facebook, a printed, honest-to-God tome with a cover and a bunch of pages. That'd be me, Malcolm Tent from Danbury, Connecticut, baby, bringing you the latest episode of Tent Talks Tunes. Waka! I am here, baby, ready to pontificate, punctuate, and just generally proselytize about music, things musical, and musical things. All of the above. Yes, indeedy do. It has been a very interesting and very long few weeks for your frantic host here, Malcolm Tent. If you tuned in last week to Tent Talks Tunes, you would have heard my post-tour roundup, which is all about doing the Devotional Devo fan gathering in Ohio, and then an awesome show with Anti-Scene in Spartanburg, South Carolina, and all of the adventures in between. If you did miss it, it's okay. You can catch it because I've got my YouTube channel up and running and up to date and running like a machine. Go to my YouTube channel. Subscribe to my YouTube channel. Live, love, laugh, loaf with my YouTube channel. And check it out. Don't miss a word. You also might recall that I picked up a little bit of a bug somewhere on the road. I don't know what it is. I think it was because I was mowing a lawn in Hickory, North Carolina. When I was laying in bed feeling just totally icky, for some reason my mind kept going back to this lawn that I mowed. I might have picked up an allergy or something like that. Maybe the internet research team can let me know if lawns in North Carolina have different properties from lawns in Connecticut. Because I've mowed plenty of lawns in Connecticut since I moved up here in 1986. Have not mowed a lawn in North Carolina ever, not once, ever, until last week. So, I don't know. Is my subconscious mind sending me the wrong signals? Or is it totally possible that North Carolinian lawns have some kind of fungus or diatomaceous earth in them that make me go for days on end? I don't know. By the way, I have no regrets. I'm glad I did it. I like mowing lawns. Mowing lawns is fun. Mowing a lawn is a very results-oriented task. Good way to get some exercise and fresh air and sunshine, especially before a long-ass drive from North Carolina to Connecticut. So I'm glad I did it, and I'll do it again. But I'm just kind of curious. That's all, just kind of curious. Let's drink some water. Hey, wait a minute. This is not a gallon of water. This is a little tiny bottle of water. Who has ever seen Malcolm Tent with a little itty-bitty bottle of water? Things happen. And I'll tell you why this is happening. This is not my traditional 1-gallon jug of fresh Danbury tap. No, this is a small little itty-bitty 8-ounce bottle of Village Springs. Village Springs, bottled in Connecticut, but disallowed from being sold in the state of Connecticut. I don't even want to know what that means. But, you know, the World Inferno Friendship Society had an album called All Borders Are Porous to Cats. Apparently, this bottle of Village Springs water wanted to be drunk in Connecticut in spite of all the odds. So here it is in my hands being drunk. And Village Springs, it's kind of a running joke with the Bloody Apostles. Long story. Maybe I'll tell it someday. I don't know. And the reason why I have this instead of the gallon of Danbury tap, as I usually do, is that there's been a lot of work on the water mains here in town lately, and the water company managed to rupture one of the water mains, so no palatable, potable water in my neighborhood at all. Boil water order in effect for days and days and days and days. which is a bit of a drag, but imagine my shock and awe when I woke up one morning and found a big case of Village Springs water sitting on my porch waiting for me to drink, one 8-ounce bottle at a time, in a highly inefficient, wasteful manner. But you notice it doesn't stop me. I'm a human being. I do what human beings do. I drive a car that pollutes the very air that I breathe, on roads that are paved over and through what were once verdant, beautiful, lush forests. What can I say? It's a terminal case of corkscrews in the brain. Can't fight it. Can't fight it. Excuse me. Let's take a look at the telephonic device right there so I can monitor my feed and make sure that I am indeed live and that people are indeed watching. Hey, it looks like people are indeed watching. I have to tune this in periodically. Now let's see. Jenny DeSoto, my birthday pal. Hi, Jenny in New Jersey. How you doing? Mike Lesser from Vancouver, British Columbia. Noticing that I do indeed look rested. I feel a lot more rested. I really do. I feel a lot better than I did last week. That's faux show. James Pogo. Now, James Pogo says, Tent Talks ECW. I've had a few people tell me that I should do an episode strictly on the last truly great wrestling promotion ever, ECW. I have got some stories about ECW. Not quite ready to talk about them tonight because I did find a topic to talk about tonight, purely accidentally. I got something to talk about, and we'll get to that in a minute. First, let's see who's talking about me. It's about what? Grant Den, the original Broken Talent guitar player from somewhere in the great Midwest. Iowa? Correct me if I'm wrong, but Grant says that Malcolm mouths mowing. That's what we call contextual humor, and that's good stuff. Y'all might wonder, why was I waving this book around, the Wrestling Title Histories by Royal Duncan and Gary Will? It's because I've been working on this big old project lately. Royal Duncan, who I've known for quite a long time, is a major wrestling historian. He wrote this book, which is an exhaustive history of wrestling title histories. His newest book, which is not out yet, is going to be a discography relating to wrestling records. This dude has taken on the gargantuan task of trying to compile in one book every record relating to the great sport of professional wrestling ever pressed. That is a daunting task. And I'll get an email from him once every few months saying, hey, got any wrestling records for sale? If I do, I'll hit him up and say, yes, I've got this, that. And if he doesn't have them, he buys them. Research for his book. And I just finished what I do believe to be a comprehensive anti-scene wrestling record discography. Now, just by default, the almighty anti-scene needs to be in his book because A, I, the number 12 and final bass player that anti-scene will ever have, I have done brief action in the professional wrestling ring. So right off the bat, anti-scene qualifies for inclusion. I did an extremely short run of exactly one match as the manager for a tag team, and my persona was Christian Law, born-again minister of champions. Yes, so we qualify. But on top of that, Jeff Clayton, the lead singer of Anti-Scene, right there, he has done, he has done a lot more service than I have in the service of professional wrestling in two different guises. One as Rip Carnage, who has set foot in the ring, and not only has set foot in the ring, but has gone over the top rope. Rip Carnage, and also, well, I don't know, I couldn't say for sure that it was really Jeff Clayton, because we do respect kayfabe around here, but I read in one of the rag sheets that the mysterious masked manager in North Carolina, known as the Confederate Crusader, somebody pointed out that Jeff Clayton and the Confederate Crusader have never been seen in the same place at the same time in the same ring. They've never been seen together. Now, maybe I'm just drawing conclusions. I don't know. But just for the sake of argument, I'm going to infer that there's a slight possibility that maybe Jeff Clayton might know something about the mysterious identity of the hooded, heel, super uber bad guy manager, the Confederate Crusader. Just because of that rumor alone, I think Anti-Scene are worthy of inclusion in the new book by Royal Duncan. Never mind the fact that Anti-Scene has released probably about 40 records relating to the sport of professional wrestling. How many songs does Anti-Scene have about professional wrestling? We got Sabu, we got Funk You, we got Dear Abby about Abdullah the Butcher, we've got The Mysterious Green Mist, we've got Exploding Barbed Wire Deathmatch, we got I'm a Babyface Killer. I mean, right off the bat, that's six professional wrestling songs. There's at least one that's in the pipeline somewhere about the great North Carolina wrestler George South. That's a lot of wrestling. So I spent days and days and days putting this discography together. So whenever Gary Wills and Royal Duncan finish their book about wrestling-related records, look for the almighty Anti-Scene in it and know that my research is at least a part of the book. I'm so happy about it. I really am. It took a long damn time to put that discography together. Also, things that have been happening, which are very exciting. Might as well talk about Anti-Scene some more. I've had the Thunder Lumba strapped around my neck. The Thunder Lumba, which in other parts of the world might be called the Thunder Lumber. You might wonder, what is the Thunder Lumber? You know what? I'm going to grab it right now and show it to you, because it's right there on the other side of my super duper slick, swank, fancy cable TV set design here. This won't even take a second. You can probably count 1001, 1002, 1003. All right, it took about 4 seconds. Who cares? This, my friends, is the Thunder Lumber, the bass guitar. This is the very controversial bass guitar owned by me since 1985. I bought this bass guitar off the rack at a music shop in Fort Lauderdale called Musicians Exchange. I paid $125 for it, hard case included, and I've had it ever since. And I've taken this fine, fine piece of thunderous lumber and strapped it around my neck to record demo bass tracks for the brand new Anti-Scene album. The album is going to be called Great Disasters. I have completed scratch bass tracks on 7 tunes so far. Sent them to the producer, Sir Barry Hannibal of Anti-Scene, who is overseeing the entire project. He gave him the thumbs up. I'm pretty happy about that, because Sir Barry has a good ear and he knows exactly what he wants to hear. So to pass muster with him is a definite feather in the cap. So lots of bass slapping and lots of chicken scratching over the past few days since we last had a Tent Talks Tunes. That's very exciting. What else is exciting? Mail is exciting. Stay. Do not fall on the floor and crash. Thank you. I have an obedient bass. Mail is always good, especially when mail comes from the great country of the United Kingdom, the great country of England, and it's from my good pal, and not only pal, but label mogul, Ian Mark Perry, who's got a label called Real Records in merry old England. He's the guy who releases all my stuff in England. He's also a professional wrestling fan, giant mark, and has exquisite taste in music, I should say. Sent me an envelope. I have no idea what's in it. This is a sealed envelope. Let's find out right now, shall we? Let's take this cheap-ass pair of scissors. This is the million-mile pair of scissors. This pair of scissors has put 1,000,000 miles on it, cutting through envelopes and cassette inserts and CD trays and the paper that these scissors have seen. I've seen it all too. So here it is. As expected, there's a cassette in there. Let's see what kind of a cassette it is. psych. This is a cassette. Oh, it's a Naomi Randall cassette. Oh, Naomi. I love Naomi. Naomi is a wonderful, beautiful, silver-throated songstress from England. And I've had the opportunity to share the stage with her only once so far in the city of Cambridge, England. And she was wonderful. And I love her albums. And this is apparently a brand new album. Very Nearly Nocturnes and Gnomic Verse. I am excited to hear this. And we've got, of course, requisite stickers, because that's the way you do it in the mail world. You throw in fun stuff like stickers, and look at that. A handwritten note, and also a CD version of the new Naomi Randall. I am really stoked to hear this. If any of you people out there like Joni Mitchell, or Fairport Convention, or traditional English folk music, Naomi. She's great. Love her. When we played our show together, she had her merch table set up. But you know what she was selling on her merch table? I'm going to take a drink and I'm going to tell you what she was selling on her merch table. What she had on her merch table were paintings of clouds. I was enchanted when I saw that. And if I had had the means to bring back canvas paintings of clouds in my backpack when I flew back to the U.S., I totally would have. But I will never forget that. That was just a really wonderful, enchanting thing to see at a dirty-ass nightclub in Cambridge, England. So salute Ian Mark Perry and Naomi Campbell. Thanks, guys. Let's take a quick look at the monitor here and make sure that everything is still going on here. Yeah, we're rocking. Mike Phillips guessed it. Mike, you got a sharp eye. In spite of the fact that the Thunder Lumber is enshrouded with black electrical tape, it is a PVT-20. All stock, original pickup. I don't know what kind of a pickup this thing is, but it's got the nastiest bite to it. And when I run it through my distortion pedals and crank it through Barry Hannibal's Mesa Boogie 215 cab, it sounds positively volcanic and evil. Evil. You'll hear it on the new album. And who else has got to say, yeah, all right, we're talking, we're cool. Yes, all is good. Excellent. Excuse me. So, what am I going to talk about? I've already talked about stuff for 18 minutes and 4 seconds, and that's practically a show right there. We haven't even gotten into the vegan meat of the matter, baby. We haven't even stuck a fork into anything. We've just done the preliminaries and the warm-ups. We got to talk tunes, baby. We got to talk tunes. And yeah, I mean, normally I've got an idea of what to talk about, and I woke up this morning and I had no idea. None whatsoever. Zero, zilch, nothing. Psh, nothing. I was totally going to go all requests today. I was totally ready to say, hey guys, do you want to know anything? Got any questions to ask? But while I was pulling orders for my mail order business, got to always slip that in. Discogs. Look up TPOS on Discogs. Look up TPOS on eBay. That's me, baby. That's me-bay on eBay. That's how I pay the bills. That's how if I have to buy 8-ounce bottles of Village Spring on the black market in Connecticut, that's how I'm going to pay for them. I sell tons of new and used records by everybody from Led Zeppelin to Frank Zappa to Zoog's Rift to the Zeros. And let's not forget Zolar X, X, VX, and the other X from Australia. I got a lot of damn stuff. So anyway, I was pulling and picking orders, and I came across, excuse me, 4 big boxes of 7-inch singles that I recently acquired, and it totally brought me right back to an era and a time and a place. These records that I picked up recently, thanks to my good pal Mike Muldoon, Mike, if you're watching, hello, was what was left of the inventory of a record label from Yonkers, New York, called Noiseville Records. And Noiseville was run by a really, really cool dude named Jim Gibson. Jim was a swell dude. Just knew his music, loved his music, lived his music. Super cool guy with 100% integrity, an absolute pleasure to know him and an absolute pleasure to deal with him. Known him almost since the day I moved to Connecticut, which was almost exactly 35 years ago. Think about that. I've been in Connecticut for almost exactly 35 years now. And Jim was amongst the first people I met when I first opened my store, Trash American Style. So Jim had a record label called Noiseville, and I was supremely bummed when Jim died last year. He ceased living. He left the planet. He had health problems for a while, and they finally got the best of him, and left a big gaping hole in the New England record collector scene, because he was just a good dude. He sold posters and rare records, and he had his own record store in Buchanan, New York, and of course ran the aforementioned record label Noiseville Records. So Jim left a lot of his all of his 7-inch stock to this guy Mike, and Mike found himself in a position where he had to liquidate. So, as is what happens occasionally, I ended up with all the records. And it's always really weird when these things happen, because in my career I've liquidated a number of record stores, I've liquidated a number of record labels, I have bought and sold, I don't even know how many record collections that people have put together. And it's a very strange mixed bag to do that. Because on the one hand, it's how I make my living. On the other hand, I love doing it. I love going through records. There's very few thrills as big as plowing through crates and crates of records, knowing that they could potentially be mine, and never knowing what's going to be behind the next record. It's like, okay, well, here's a copy of Whipped Cream and Other Delights, but what's behind it? First State Stereo unpeeled butcher cover. Okay, we'll put that in the yes pile. There's your Baja Marimba Band. What's behind it? Oh, Are We Not Men, We Are Devo. That goes in the yes pile. Just anybody out there who's a crate digger or who loves record shopping knows what I'm talking about. It's just a lot of fun. The thrill of discovery, the thrill of the chase. On the other hand, it's really weird because collections, and especially record labels and record stores, are very real extensions of people's personalities and of their lives. You're looking at a big chunk of somebody's life when you're going through this stuff. And these objects, these records, tapes, CDs, whatever, a collection was put together with great care by a person. A record label was curated, to use that term, with great care and with a singular vision by a person or people. Same thing with the contents of a record store. None of this stuff is accidental. It's all done very deliberately and with a very specific idea and an overarching vision. And to have it reduced to just crates of objects that are going to be separated into good, bad, valuable, worthless, sell, throw away, it's always odd, because it makes it very mathematical, and you're taking somebody's, if not their entire life work, then at least a big part of their life, and reducing it to objects. And I always have a little bit of a hard time with that, and especially in a case like this, when I got the Noiseville 7-inch singles archive, or inventory, I guess is more accurate. Jim had an absolutely unique vision for his label, Noiseville. He had a really skewed, wacky sense of humor, and the bands that he signed and the records that he released were very reflective of that, plus his individual taste in music. Now, one factoid about Jim Gibson and Noiseville Records, which blows me away to this very day. I'm sure you people out there know, and if you don't, you better find out about possibly the greatest disc jockey who ever lived, besides myself, John Peel from the BBC. If you don't know about John Peel, get on the research and find out. John Peel is inestimable in terms of the mark that he's left on modern music. So John Peel died a bunch of years back, and John Peel was known to have a box of records that he kept close at hand at all times, just in case of emergency. If the house was burning down, if the flood was coming and he had to flee, he could only grab one box of records to take with him. He had it nearby at all times. And when John Peel died, his family opened up the box of records to see, well, what would he have grabbed with him at all costs? What were the records that he was going to save at all costs? And the list it's been posted, it's been on the internet, but there were a number of Noiseville label titles in that box. I think like 5 or 6 of them. John Peel had Noiseville records in his boogie box. To me, that says a lot. That says an awful lot. And so for me to have 5 big 7-inch storage boxes of Noiseville records, I mean, it's too much for me to run out the door with, but it's a definite trademark of quality. And so I'm picking these records, and I figured it might be fun to take a trawl through the Noiseville boxes and talk about a few things that I found in there, and my recollections and reminiscences of them and my opinions of them, as I drink some of this delicious, completely illegal in the state of Connecticut, Village Springs bottled water. Pee-Pee Duvet, if you're out there watching, this one's for you. Let's see. Let's check the monitor quickly before I go into the action of the Noiseville. Hey, Michael Muldoon himself is watching right now. Mike, thank you. Thank you for facilitating me with the records. James Pogo mentions the very first Noiseville release ever, the Pocket Fisherman 7-inch. See, now tell me right off the bat that's not awesome. A band called the Pocket Fisherman. Same deal. If you don't know, look it up. And when you see where the name of the band came from, it's hilarious. Utterly hilarious. The Pocket Fisherman. Oy vey. So I organized all these records alphabetically, and when I alphabetize my records, I usually start with the compilations and collections first, and then go A through Z. So a couple of compilations right off the bat that struck my eye, if not my fancy, were records featuring a band that I used to be in, the Bunny Brains. A couple of different Bunny Brains split 7-inchers. One of them, this is with a Swiss band called Designer, who I know nothing about. But this was the Swiss Cheese American Cheese split 7-inch. And then this other one is one of those career near misses. Like I'd been out of the Bunny Brains for a year or two when these records came out. Bunny Brains split with Sockeye, Ohio's greatest noisemongers. I love Sockeye. They are so ridiculous, it's ridiculous. They're so absurd, it's silly. They're so silly, it's nuts. And Poopy Necropond of Sockeye has become a pal of mine over the years. So even though my old band is on a split record with his project, I'm not on it. Poopy, I'm not on a record with you. What gives? Same thing happened. There was a Bunny Brains split 7-inch with the band Harry Pussy. Now don't get all offended. Harry is a diminutive of the name Harold. Okay? So think Harold Pussy, but the nickname of Harold. Okay? Harry Pussy. Harry Pussy was made up of basically Florida expatriates. Bill Orcutt from Hialeah, Florida, who is on the sort of outer perimeter of the Broken Talent Auxiliary Corps. I never knew him, but he was friends with a lot of the people who were in the Broken Talent Auxiliary Corps. And Mark Feehan, known to many as Marky Awesome, the guitar player of Broken Talent, and Adris Hoyas, who later moved to Poughkeepsie, where she consorted with a great artist named Graham Lambkin. They did a bunch of stuff together, and I met her when she moved to Poughkeepsie. So those 3 people were in Harry Pussy. They did a split with the Bunny Brains, once again, after I had quit the Bunny Brains. So I just narrowly missed being on a record with Marky Awesome's other band. Life is weird. So anyway, pretty sure this was a Noiseville release, and I think this was a Nose Hair release. This was a Nose Hair release, and Nose Hair was the label of Alan Mack, who was another friend of mine who also had the gall to die on us a bunch of years ago. His label Noise Hair was kind of similar to Noiseville. So Nose Hair and Noiseville all kind of ended up in boxes in my basement. And Alan was also in the Bunny Brains for a brief period of time. I actually had to fire Alan from the Bunny Brains, but that's a different story for a different time. We stayed friends. I liked the guy, but I had to fire him from the Bunny Brains. And I wasn't even a member of the Bunny Brains at the time. Caramba! Now, you know that one of the great fun things about running a label is trading with other labels and trading with bands. And when Noiseville was really super active in the early 90s, there were a lot of labels to trade with and a lot of bands to trade with. Tons of them! Oh my God. And once again, I draw your attention to the Malcolm Tent YouTube channel. I've done episodes of Tent Talks Tunes all about the 90s scene in Danbury and beyond. And these are real, real genuine, tangible artifacts from that time and place. Noiseville did a lot of trading with Danbury bands, so I ended up with some copies of the great China Pig Monsterland split 7-inch. And I don't know if you guys can see the China Pig side features, I'll try to show this to you, hand-cut artwork. The band cut and pasted art elements on every single one of the records. And, you know, pressed it on, some of them came on this, like this burgundy vinyl, some were on black. I've done also shows devoted entirely to Monsterland and China Pig. Look them up. Great Danbury 90s alt rock. And I, of course, got to mention these are all for sale. All of these are for sale, and they're very inexpensive, most of them. Cheap. Cheap, even, I'll say. Cheap. This was a real cool thing. This was released at the very peak of alt-rock mania in Connecticut. 4-song compilation 7-inch with Creature Did, Stub, Atlas, and Her Tears on the Capsule record label. Even if you don't want to go to my YouTube channel and look up my 90s show, I'll briefly recap. The 90s was a golden era for music because for one brief shining moment, it was the cool thing for everybody to be in a band or book shows or have a label or print a zine or do something. Be a radio DJ. That's what all the kids were doing. So, you know, there was a record label in Danbury that released, I think, 2 or 3 records, including this snapshot of the peak of alt-rock. This record came out in late 1995, pretty much just as, the alt-rock bubble burst. All 4 of these bands are really good. They're all Danbury. And this just really brings back the excitement of that time. It's all good music, you know? It's good music. And I hadn't seen one of these records in forever, so I, of course, kept one for myself. Others are up for grabs. Now, back to the Noiseville front. Now, this is indicative of Jim Gibson's sense of humor. How about a band called Iron Butter? Tell me that's not funny. Iron Butter is split with a band called Irritate. Haven't heard this one yet, but just by the looks of it, this has got Jim all over him. Was Jim in Iron Butter? Can somebody clarify that for me, Mike or somebody? Do we have a personnel list? Let's see. Vocals by Yonkers Ralph. Drums by Old Boy. Bass by McDonald Trump. And guitar by Wicked King Jim. Yes, Jim Gibson was actually in Iron Butter. So there you go. Wicked King Jim himself. What more do you need to know? Iron Butter. This is going to be on the turntable fairly soon. Straight out of Yonkers, baby. Yonkers. And also just to show you how ahead of the curve Jim was, this record is from 19... Well, there's no date on it, but it does reference MySpace. If you want to find Iron Butter, you got to go to MySpace. So that shows you how old this record is. He had a nickname for Donald Trump before Trump was even president. That's ahead of the curve. Not only ahead of the curve, but very, very New York. Very New York. Jim Gibson, Iron Butter. One record that Jim put out on Noiseville, and this one got a lot of turntable play at Trash American Style, and at home, and on my radio show, Mr. Tent's Wild Ride, of which I have an update, by the way. I was recently in communication with the general manager at WNHU West Haven, and the target date now for live DJs to be back on the air is late January. So, Lord willing and the creeks don't rise, I will be back on my regular Thursday night slot doing Mr. Tent's Wild Ride. So you people can be sick to death of me if you want. You can have me Wednesdays for Tent Talks Tunes, where I talk about music, and then Thursdays for Mr. Tent's Wild Ride, where I play music. That, my friends, is a real pincher movement. And we're going to squeeze the mediocrity out of this sad planet of ours. Oh, boy. Let's check the monitor very quickly, shall we? What does the monitor reveal? We got a lot of comments here. Ooh, more than I can possibly reference right now. I will have to be online after I get off and talk to you folks and commiserate and comment in return. Good to know that the feed is working and I am seen. Anyway, this record right here, Bench, Backseat Lover. Holy guacamole. This is what sludge, distortion, noise, heaviness are all about. Not only an incredible double A-side slab of pure lava, but great cover art. All cut and paste, all offset pressed, offset printing, and it's on this really cool, I mentioned it before, this maroon vinyl. I don't know if you can see the maroonness of this vinyl, but man, this record rocks so hard, it's not even funny. I've had one of these in my personal collection forever, and now I've got multiple copies. That's a hint. So Jim Gibson, bringing Bench to light on his label Noiseville. What else did we find out? Some more trade stuff for all you Danbury people. How about a couple of China Pig? Actually, one record by China Pig on Mud Industries. Kind of the same deal. If you were there, you know exactly what I'm talking about. If you weren't there, you can play this fabulous aqua colored vinyl record and hear for yourself. Hand pasted artwork. Hand drawn artwork. These are artifacts and very good music. And very much about the joy of having a record label and a band where you can trade records back and forth with people freely. This is a real time capsule I got here. I have a museum in my basement, Such cool stuff. More great Danbury 90s stuff. How about Creature Did? Love these guys. They were part of the mass exodus to Danbury. It's one of those almost imponderable things, but for a while, Danbury was a destination for bands. These guys moved up from Litchfield County. They were all way up north in Torrington, and they moved to Danbury to make it big. And it ended up doing a few records and played a ton of damn shows, and they were a lot of good rockin' action live with these guys. Any colored vinyl? Ooh, look at that. Robin's Egg Blue colored vinyl with white swirl and a very cheerful orange and silver label. This is better than an MP3 any old day, people. But I think you already knew that if you're watching right now. I wonder what did Jim Gibson trade to Creature Did? What from the Noiseville label ended up on the Creature Did distro table at venues like the Chicken Coop and Tuxedo Junction and the Danbury Music Center and the Harambee Youth Center and the Grange Hall in Litchfield. I wonder. Okay, this is an excellent example of Jim's sense of humor and his record collector's sensibility. This is the TGARLC Stone Box. A promo item of 12. It even says on the back 12. And what it is, it's basically it's an old box from the pressing plant. The records arrive from the pressing plant in these boxes. You can see the catalog number was N22, probably Noiseville. And so what did Jim do? He made a super duper handmade promo only box for this band. Who the hell are TGARLC? I don't know. Let's find out. What's in this box? What is indicative of Jim's sense of humor in this box? Well, let's see. All right, we've got a regular pressing of the record, kind of crammed in there. Oh, I see. It's on the Shitsville label. That's his subsidiary label. If Noiseville wasn't noisy enough, he had Shitsville for the real ultra materials that human beings weren't meant to listen to. All right, so we got a copy of the 7-inch just jammed in there haphazardly, and you can see it suffered a little bit. And let's see what else. A sock. But you know what I was delighted to find out? It's a clean sock. It's a clean sock. You can't smell it. This is not smell-o-vision, but it's actually very, after all these years, it still smells like detergent. A clean sock and a Shitsville record just jammed into a packing box. And there it is. I'll have to end up keeping that one, I think. You want to talk about feathers in the cap? Here's a feather in the cap. Jim Gibson pulled this one off. Jim Gibson called me on the phone when this one happened. He said, "Guess what?" I said, "What?" He said, "Guess what?" I said, "What?" He said, "I just released a record by John Lennon." I said, "Do tell, Professor. Information, please." Jim Gibson had done a reissue of a whole bunch of stuff by David Peel. And to promote the David Peel catalog reissue, he wanted to do an interview record with John Lennon talking about David Peel, because they ran together in New York City in the early 70s. So Jim Gibson, by whatever means needed to do, actually got it cleared. Yoko Ono herself approved of it, and so Jim released this record of John Lennon talking about David Peel. It's legit. He released a John Lennon record on his label, and he legitimately put John and Yoko and David Peel on the front cover. This is as real as it gets. I don't know if I would have had the nerve to do it, but Jim did it. And Jim was a huge fan of the Beatles. He knew more about Beatles records and Beatles pressings than anybody I ever met. He really helped me out over the years a lot with just weird shit like Indian pressings, Turkish pressings, Albanian pressings. He knew all this stuff. And was very active in the Beatles record collecting scene. So to have this on his label was a real feather in his cap. I was really happy for him. And this is actually a test pressing of it. This has got the old United Records pressing plant test pressing labels. Hideously ugly, but authentic. So I got a few of these. If any of you Lennon completists out there need it, I got it. Any of you out of control David Peel fans, if you need it, I got it. It's actually technically a John Lennon David Peel split 7-inch. It's got the David Peel No More Nukes song on the B-side. And that's just another one of the great joys and beauties of having an independent label. You can, if you got enough nerve and enough chutzpah, and if you're persistent enough, you can make something like this happen. you can have John Lennon on your record label. Pretty damn cool. If you're a wacky mofo like Jim Gibson, you can not only have John Lennon on your label, you can have drunk John Lennon on your label. Out of everything that Jim ever released on Noiseville, I think this is my favorite. The drunk John Lennon 7-inch. I got a few copies of this, none had sleeves. Drunk John Lennon, the A side, I Want to Hold Your Gland, and the B side, Hey Toe. I guarantee you, my friends, and my enemies, and everybody in between, this is probably the worst record ever made in the history of mankind. And I released a record that was supposed to be the worst record in the history of mankind, and that was the Def Leppard 7-inch. Some of you might have to toss a coin. I don't know. The Def Leppard 7-inch is definitely the worst 7-inch record ever pressed. And that's on my label, TPOS. But the Drunk John Lennon 7-inch, well, that's the worst record ever pressed. You see what I mean? It's like I can say both sentences at the same time with equal conviction, and it's, I mean, like, how do you choose? How do you choose the worst record ever? Drunk John Lennon, Hey Toe, and I Want to Hold Your Gland. I'm sure it's on YouTube. You got to hear it. As I'm fond of saying, you got to hear it to believe it. And even once you've heard it, you probably wouldn't believe it. He pressed this on vinyl. Jim Gibson pressed this on vinyl. And judging by the fact that there was only like 2 or 3 in the box, I guess he sold the rest of them. God bless you, Jim. Ted Franco, the father of our good friend John Franco. If you take a look at the picture of the guy on the back, there he is, the man himself, Ted Franco. I only met the guy once, only in passing. Please forgive me if I'm not being accurate here, but I had heard him described as an alcoholic school janitor. I'm not saying that to be unkind. That is simply the description that was made to me. But he had a vision. He wrote lyrics. He played music. And Jim Gibson released, Alan Mack released his records on the Nose Hair label, which basically coexisted with Noiseville. The very fact that this artifact exists makes me deliriously happy. Because if I got my facts and figures right, an alcoholic high school janitor was able to make a record and have his music and have his vision put before the public. And I love this stuff. I love this. His Christmas record, Santa Beer Reindeer, is one of the only records that gets played every single year on my radio show. Because on Mr. Ten's Wild Ride, I do a Christmas show every single year. Ted Franco, Santa Beer Reindeer, one of the only records I've ever played every single year on Mr. Ten's Wild Ride. And this record, awesome. It's sincere. It's not tongue-in-cheek. It's not ironic. It's sincere. That's why I love it. And I got a bunch of these, should any of you people out there want one. A little more cross-pollination. Freak Baby. Got some Freak Baby records. Another Danbury fine band who I've done entire episodes on. Got some of their records. Head. I've talked about Head before. If Monsterland were the Beatles, Head were the Stones. Monsterland was the band who almost got there. They came within striking distance of it. Head never came within striking distance of it, but man, these guys could have ruled the fucking universe. And I'm very fond of this one. This is an actual pack from Rockin' Records, Rockin' Rex in Yonkers. Jim Gibson used to work at Rockin' Rex. I think that's where he got his start in the biz. Correct me if I'm wrong. Once again, let me check the monitor real quick. We got so many comments. I love it. Hi, guys. Yes, I'll be talking to you guys in a minute. No corrections on the status of Ted Franco and no corrections on whether Jim got his start at Rockin' Rex. I think he did. But anyway, Rockin' Rex by Tony Pradlick. Rockin' Rex was to Yonkers kind of what Trash American Style was to Danbury. It was a hub. People grew up there. People met bandmates there. People met people there. And Tony was and is a true music fanatic. So finding this in the box with Noiseville stuff was great. This is from Rockin' Rex. It's got Tony's handwritten note on it. Only Tony would do something like this. Check this out. This is the Head Mega Package, red vinyl, including CDR of both bands, Head versus Nirvana, plus the Goodbye Townies double CDR and bonus flyers and mini posters. You put it all together in one package. The 7-inch, the CDRs. Okay, Tony, this one's a bootleg of something on my label, TPOS. But I never released it on CD, so whatevs. But you know that, and you know, DVD of the night that Head opened up for Nirvana in New Haven at a small club, and the flyers. This is what Artifactage is all about. And Jim had one of these literally until the day he died. And now I've got it. I'm probably not going to part with this one. This is just too cool. This is just too much of a sign of the times. I don't think I'm going to part with this one. That goes in the personal collection. What else? There was a record label in Albany, New York called Earl, who released a Jad Fair project called Mosquito. If you know Jad Fair, you can probably guess what this one's all about. I guess Earl and Noiseville did some trading. Fine little record. This is one. This is also on Nose Hair. This is, I love this record, Skin Crawler, The Magic Puppets. This is a Profanatica side project. Paul Ledney from Profanatica had this vision of a band of evil magic puppets. And when they went out and played live, only a couple of times, they dressed as evil puppets. And Paul Ledney had this little tiny drum kit. It was on a hand truck. It was like a little tiny kick drum, a little tiny snare, and a little tiny cymbal, all mounted on a hand truck. So he'd reel this thing in, play it, and then wheel it out, while dressed as a magic puppet. And it's sung in like ridiculous falsetto voice, and it's songs about Magic Puppet Ride. I mean, come on, guys. Magic Puppet Ride? The title alone. What more do you need? Pure concept. 90s vinyl. The fact that the time and the place was right to make a record like this and get away with it. Black vinyl, big hole. Good name for a band, huh? If you start a band called Black Vinyl Big Hole, all you got to do is give me one box of records, one box of every release you do as my royalty payment, because I gave you the best name for a band ever. Black Vinyl Big Hole. Jim Gibson had a band called Unholy Swill. You can probably guess by the name what the band was all about. And yet again, here's Jim's record collector sensibility and his artistic sensibility and his sense of humor. He did a limited edition of an Unholy Swill record, 15 copies, not only hand-painted, but this one's hand-painted on black velvet. Black velvet sleeve. Indeed. Why? Why? Because you can. Black velvet, kids. Just fantastic. So much fun sitting around making things like this with paint and whatever materials are at hand, you know. And Unholy Swill is one of those bands that definitely lives up to their name. Check out the Unholy Swill version of War Pigs by Black Sabbath. That says everything you need to know about Unholy Swill and Jim Gibson's Noise and Noiseville aesthetic. Great fun. Black Velvet, 15 made. And of course, another version of it according to the liner notes here, Jim's own handwriting. That's Jim's handwriting. First 7-inch, Wannabe God, gold wax, first press, hand-painted cover, 90 made. And you can see there's a definite artistic similarity between the two, even though they are different records. King Kong Balls. 90 made, gold vinyl. Excuse me, this one's got a $40 price tag on it. I wonder if he ever actually got $40 for it. I hope he did. Jim was a good guy. He deserved to get $40 for one of his records. Let's see, that 40 is covering another price. What was the old price on it? Also 40. I don't know. Jim was, he did big business in the UK for a while and overseas, you know, as you could guess by John Peel's fervent love for some of his records. So I guess this might have been meant for the overseas market. I don't know, $40? Even if you sell one for $40, that's pretty damn cool. And the final artifact from the Noiseville inventory, or as they say in England, the inventory, the Noiseville monthly single series. The monthly single series, that was a bit of a trend, a very good trend, you know, pioneered by Sub Pop, because Sub Pop had their single of the month club, where you subscribe and get by mail order only an exclusive single every month. So same deal in the 90s, you could do this. There was actually the kind of audience where you could do a monthly single series. And so Jim did his first dozen. And not only that, he packaged them in a box and made 100 of them with hand-screened box covers. And also, just to show you what kind of a guy Jim was, he gave me one of these. He just gave one to me. Didn't ask for anything in return, nothing. Just here. He said, here, take this. I want you to have this. He gave me one. And I've always had it, and I was quite surprised and delighted to find another one in the inventory. So what's in this box? You know, it's been a long time since I looked. The first year of the Noiseville Singles Club, which I believe was the only year. In 1 year, he released, and this is another great time capsule, in 1 year, Noiseville had a record by Drunks with Guns, Blowgun, oddly enough, Unholy Swill, a band called Catharsis, not the anarcho Steal This Book band, but a different Catharsis from New Jersey, ST-37, Crack House, Meat Hooks, Sound of My Own Voice, Bootbeast, the second bench record, the first bench record, Accidental Tribe, and The Thing. That's 1 year. My God, I never really thought about that. I'd never had a year's worth of records by one label put in one box in one place. This is not even 12. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. Maybe one of these was a bonus. But regardless, 13 records in 1 year on top of his regular releases. That's what the 90s were like, guys. The 90s were crazy and so much fun if you liked records and music. That's basically it. That's what I talked about tonight on Tent Talks Tunes. Jim Gibson and the Noiseville record and the Noiseville record label in the 90s, and maybe hopefully you guys got a little bit of a whiff of what the scene was like, what kind of a guy Jim was, what his personality was like, and what his record label was like, and some of his fellow travelers and people like myself that he ran with. Good fun, good music, and as you can guess, a lot of damn noise. I'm going to be playing a lot of these tonight while I sup with my vegan yogurt and my twigs and berries. This is going to be a really good listening soundtrack for tonight. And also, if you guys want any of these records, or most of them, I got copies for sale. Prices are cheap, 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 cheap. I got them inexpensively. I'm selling them inexpensively. And I will vouch for every one of these I've actually heard that I like, I can vouch for. And the others I'll be finding out tonight. So, thank you everybody, as always, for tuning in. I like to make like Led Zeppelin and ramble on, but you listen to me, you let me do it. I am grateful to every single one of you. I am thankful to every single one of you for allowing me to do this. So tune in, turn on, and drop out of your mind with Tent Talks Tunes. As for me, I hope to be back in about 167 hours time. Until we meet again, this is Malcolm Tent saying so long from the Nutmeg State.